When earning gold in Baldur's Gate 3, you'll often end up filling your entire inventory with complete garbage just to make a few bucks. But there's gotta be a better way than digging through trash like a dirty rat. Which is why I wanted to challenge myself to earn 1 million gold without using exploits, glitches, or mods on the game's hardest difficulty as quickly as possible. For this challenge, I've named myself Mr. Monopoly and went with a high strength, low health sorcerer build to traverse terrain like a speedy jackrabbit. Defeating the imps took but a few seconds, then by jumping over my enemies' heads, the nautiloid is completed faster than the time it takes the average player to decide on the genitalia. While you could technically steal this bear's fish indefinitely to eventually earn 1 million gold as early as Act 1, I'm confident arriving in the city will unlock a faster method. For that reason, this region's checklist is very small. First was looting a couple of speed pots from the dead or soon to be dead mind flayers, then I bypassed the grove entirely to acquire the silver pendant from the top of this cliff. I paused briefly to pet a dog before retrieving the smuggler's ring off of a skeleton down by the river, and from there, carefully navigate undetected past the goblin's camp until being caught midair by Shadowheart. Seemingly impressed by my decision to leave innocent refugees for death, she joins me in entering the mountain pass. It's here that Lae'zel 2 spots our speedy hero and asks if we can visit the crush together to cure our infection. Because I need her help, I said yes, fully knowing we will not be going to any creche. A cloud of fog allowed us to skip past the undead on the road, and so at level 2 we'd already arrived in the game's second act in under 10 minutes time. In the Shadow-Cursed lands, it's Shadowheart's time to shine. Solo, she approaches the absolute convoy, summons the Drider with illithid powers, disarms it via command, and looted the moon lantern for Mr. Monopoly, giving her life for my millionaire dream. I released the pixie trapped within, then exploration experience got me to level 3. To give me my first bit of starter cash, I dialogued down the NPC made entirely of gold, then Moonrise Towers is just a stone's throw away. Ketheric, the absolute, and all that save the world nonsense is just gonna have to wait, because oddly enough, Wulbren is the only one I care about in this tower. His survival is necessary in my future money-making schemes. When the coast was clear, I misty stepped into his cell to smash down the back wall and broke the chains to the boat that has no business even being here. Together we sailed off into the darkness right up to Last Light's Inn, greeting Jaheira and grabbing the waypoint. With my only required side quest to the region complete, all that was left now was arriving in Baldur's Gate as quickly as possible. Thankfully, there's a subspecies of humans known as the Speedrunners who have dedicated their lives to solving this problem. I just needed to loosely follow their route. This includes parkouring over all the Shadow-Cursed buildings and a Disney Devil's Head to enter the Thorn Mausoleum. Once inside, I descended into Shar's temple, then used the knock spell to open the door to Shar's sacred kitchen. I skirted around Balthazar's room to pick up 3 chests full of gold that I'll be needing soon, then the fog trick worked again to skip these undead over here. My Storm Sorcerer's Tempest Just Flight ability allowed me to reach the lower platform, and knocking down this door grants access to the Verge of Shadows. Being only level 3, I'm obviously underprepared to face any honor mode bosses in a straight up fight, so the gold I'd picked up thus far was all going to be spent on acquiring smoke powder bombs from Quartermaster Tally. To refresh her inventory, you can level up a hireling over and over until you have enough bombs. I was a little unsure of the exact numbers I'd need for everything, so I just purchased as many as I could with the gold I'd picked up along the way here, which ended up being enough for 38 bombs. Stocked up with supplies, I entered the Shadowfell and agreed to let Balthazar take the Night Song. This is in character with me being a jackass up until now, and it skips the battle with him where I would have surely lost. To wrap up these quests, I flew up to Moonrise's rooftop to pray to the Absolute, hitting level 4 just before clicking the prompt to enter the Mind Flayer colony. As a thanks from Ketheric for helping him secure the Night Song, he traps us in the Mind Flayer colony for Balthazar to turn us into zombies. While inside of these creepy zombie pods, your character is actually silenced, but the sorcerer's subtle spell ability lets you cast a spell even if you're silenced, making Misty stepping out to invisibly sneak away from Balthi a viable option. Without using glitches, facing Ketheric at level 4 can be a bit of a problem, but if America has taught the world anything, it's that all problems can be solved by using bombs. An invisible Lae'zel snuck up to free the Night Song, then jumped over to Ketheric to painstakingly place the payload of 16 smoke powder bombs. Before you go into the comments to tell me to just throw them, that didn't exactly work in my previous attempt. So from a safe distance, I triggered the explosives to one-tap phase 1, then up popped Merkel. Like an idiot, I messed up Lae'zel's movement while placing the remaining bombs, leaving her with no way to get out of harm's reach, but thankfully she'd already done her job. I drank one of my speed potions for an additional action, then triggered the blast, and the amount was enough to one-shot the Lord of Bones before we had a chance to take any damage. Because I'm forced to, I picked up the Nether Stone, then took the portal back to Moonrise's main floor. In here, Jaheira is waiting patiently to join the party. Despite my character being only level 4, she actually joins at level 8, which is a pretty big deal. Wulbren's also up here to reward the party with enough gold to revive Lae'zel, and then change Jaheira into a fighter. We took the road to Baldur's Gate, and I'm sure the Githyanki ambushers were thoroughly confused as within seconds of their arrival, Jaheira was already flying over their heads. Once inside the portal, Jaheira was gonna need to carry us if we're gonna have any chance at surviving against these monks. I buffed her up with both guidance and enlarge before she slurped down the final remaining speed pot. She began by chucking a couple Gith into space, and I probably should have watched the video on how the speedrunners do this, as I nearly screwed this whole thing up. After letting it play out, a 10 HP to hero was all that was left at the end of the fight. Then in my haste to skip through all this dialogue, I accidentally swallowed a tadpole to turn ugly. It didn't really bother me that much though, because I was really excited to have completed Act 2 in just over 1 hour played. Now in Act 3 we're nearly ready to start raking in the cash. The first stop here is the Strange Ox. An animal-speaking bearded lady spoke with it, agreeing to get it into the lower city, and a bit more parkour past Rivington right through Gortash's keep would complete this quest. As you may have expected, the counting house is the next destination. Unfortunately I failed the roll while trying to enter, but having unlimited hirelings saved my ass. Lockpicking everything here is just a waste of time, so I typed the password to trigger the robbery cutscene. This battle is probably not winnable right now, and certainly not necessary, so I immediately left it once Minsk ran off with the gold. My plan was to go after him and that cash, and now I just need something to defeat that group of enemies while I'm underleveled. Froger's Fireworks is of course the answer. My earlier collected items gave enough bonuses that lockpicking into their basement was reasonably viable, and down here there's enough explosives to kill nearly anything in the game, even your characters if you're not careful. Invisibly we carried our boxes of fireworks through the sewer muck to find Minsk, and a hasted hero snuck in after the battle started to stack up my foes. We then piled up explosives on top of my enemies' heads, and I was fully confident this many explosives would one-shot any enemy in the game. As I triggered the blast, you can even see how excited I was moving my mouse while these 4th of July celebrations commenced. Then I was genuinely confused afterwards because Roa Moonglow appears to be firework proof. If anyone knows how she survived that blast while taking 0 damage, I would love to know the answer. Unfortunately for me, her sudden unexplainable superhuman abilities allowed her to escape with my 10,000 gold. While that was a complete failure, the blast had swung the battle enough in my favor that Minsk and Victor Hura were able to be taken down after a slight struggle. Admittedly, I'm a bit salty she got away with the 10,000 gold, but the real goal of doing this encounter has actually been to recruit Minsk, as Minsk is a very special man. He starts at level 12 and you recruit him regardless of your other character's levels. This means not even 2 hours into the playthrough, I now have a max leveled character in the endgame region, which is important because the quality of any item an NPC has is determined by the level of whoever is checking their inventory. If a level 1 checks an NPC, they have pure garbage. Level 12 checks the NPC, and suddenly he's rich. Woolburn's Prison Rescue spawned in the Iron Hand Gnome's vendor for the Nimble Finger gloves, and the city's armorer sold me some standard leather armor. These items were the last 2 I needed to complete my build for this method. Pickpocketing is hands down the quickest glitch-free method in the entire game if you want to earn some cash. But because this is honor mode, a failed attempt will ruin everything, and I'm not willing to risk being caught, as it would either drastically impact my money-making speed or potentially end the run via violence. But what if I told you there is no risk, and the items I've gathered until now can be combined to create a 100% success rate pickpocket build using just the game's default mechanics? Let me break it down. Since Minsk joined at max level, he's instantly able to be reclassed into a rogue for the level 11 reliable talent passive. This overpowered ability makes his lowest possible roll a 10. As a thief, he'll get the +8 proficiency bonus to sleight of hand checks by default, then the mark of the shapeshifter gives another +1 whenever you're shapeshifted. Then we can just use the guidance necklace for that same additional bonus. By shapeshifting into a gnome specifically, the Nimble Finger gloves then increase my dexterity to 22. Giving a +6 modifier. Leather armor passively gives a +1 to any dexterity check, and finally the smuggler's rings plus gloves have a combined +3 to sleight of hand checks. These numbers together bring my lowest possible sleight of hand roll to a 30, the same number as the highest possible difficulty class in the game when you're pickpocketing. In other words, I can't fail pickpocketing unless I'm spotted by my target. Now that I have the tools for my method, equally important is going to be a route if I'm gonna do this fast. Before beginning this challenge, I checked the level 12 inventories of every vendor I could think of in Act 3, making notes of who has the most gold by default, difficulty in successfully pickpocketing them, what happens if I make a mistake while pickpocketing, and their proximity to other wealthy vendors. The guild, for example, has many riches ready to be stolen, but staying successfully hidden there can be a complete nightmare. Other vendors decide to run off at mock speeds when they randomly decided to turn around and catch you, and some may even choose immediate violence. After all of my research, I found there were 2 fairly equally good locations, one of which being the town square with 3 close proximity NPCs, but there are quite a few guards there and my PC sucks at loading the area. So the one I went with started in Figaro's room, then went to his next door neighbor Omotola, and upstairs to Thomas's shop. 2 of these 3 vendors are tied for the highest amount of gold they can possibly have in the city. All 3 have relatively empty shops that I can easily visit within 1 cast of guidance, and the nearby mini-map waypoint makes for a nice shortcut between visits or escaping from the guards. After each loop of thieving, I would long rest without supplies. Doing this resets the trader's inventories, and the next day I could rebuff my character to repeat this process. An average round trip here would earn me about 6,400 gold each time, and was extremely safe. I'd began this process when my save file showed only 2 hours and 2 minutes played, and was able to get pretty quick at running this circle. There were a few times I'd accidentally stood in front of my target, causing the guards to show up, but this would only result in an easily passable charisma roll. In the end, it only took me 156 long rests repeating this loop to earn my 1 million gold. And I truly believe this is the quickest glitch-free method possible in the entire game. By relying on a well put together build and some speedrunning tricks, I'd earned my 1 million gold in a total of 6 hours and 42 minutes played on the save file. And as you can see, this was not the first attempt, but I was happy nonetheless. Now all that's left is spending this gold, and realistically there's only one possible way to use 1 million gold in the game, and that's by blood moneying the #1 most hated NPC in Faerun.
You murdered someone in view of a guard.
Worth every penny. And you know what else is worth every penny? Subscribing to my channel. As always, I wanted to thank all of you for checking out my video, and give a special thanks to my channel members for their additional support. Until next time, Proxy out.